of our people in Nigeria. Independence for Nigeria in 1960 is imperative. But independence for Nigeria as a corporate entity is not enough. The peoples of Nigeria must at the same time be guaranteed their freedom. We must ensure that in an independent...
Welcome back from that short break. Apologies, that break took a bit longer there, but it's time for the newspaper review segment, and I hope you are ready as we are starting this newspaper review. Yeah, the Guardian newspaper. Okay, so what has the Guardian for us?
Criticisms, outrage, suspicions show presidential pardon of 175.
Yes, I know. I mean, a lot of people went out angry that the president had pardoned about 175 hardcore criminals.
We had illegal minors, we had murderers, and even drug traffickers in the list.
Well, I mean, the president does have the prerogative of mercy as his constitutional right, and we often talk about him exercising that to decongest our prisons. It goes without saying that it is really necessary to do that. However, I feel like whatever the president does, he will still get criticism. Who do you think should enjoy the prerogative of mercy? I mean, I don't understand. Anybody in the criminal system has done something wrong.
From a place of when you free murderers or you free criminals, they go back into the society to still commit the same crime. And while we are trying to curb these crimes, we are pushing out people who would still continue these crimes. So I think that is where the criticism is coming from.
But if he has the constitutional right to express his prerogative of mercy, then that's what should be attacked and not him expressing it. I mean, all over the world, the president has that right.
I think for him to have made that declaration, I feel like they would have done some level of rehabilitation and be sure that these people
are a bit repentant.
Yes, a bit repentant, and also they have something doing, because I read it that some of them have been through the National Open University, some of them have had skills and done some level of rehabilitation, so they are safe to come back to the community.
Absolutely, and it's always very interesting when you hear people scream. I read through an article, I think it was an interview or just an article that was talking about Dino Melaye's outrage, and he specified, I think it was very mischievous that he specified the drug peddlers among the many other people that the president had pardoned. He specified the drug peddlers. That's not to say we know, and I know that during the campaigns, a lot of speculations about the president's drug activity came into fore, and so specifying that the president pardoned 70 drug lords or peddlers. In fact, it was mentioned as drug lords. So it's right that the president pardoned drug peddlers. It's almost as if he is being kind. He is giving them a pat in the back. And he said it rubbished all that the NDLEA has been doing so far in mitigating drug abuse in Nigeria. Drug proliferation in Nigeria. It's quite funny. I also appreciate that there is outreach. I love a vibrant citizen participation.
Yeah, exactly, because something cannot just happen and then everybody will just be fine with it. Even though the president has the right, but then we as citizens, so we also have the right to critique.
I mean, this is democracy.
So yeah,
this is democracy.
We have another news concerning the president and NSA and NIA boss joint meeting in Rome. The meeting is the Aquaba process summit in Rome. So this summit is focused on the security crisis in West Africa. So I feel like the National Security Advisor, that's Nuri Badu, and also the Director General of the National Intelligence Agency, Mohammed, joining the meeting is something that would help Nigeria in the security aspect.
There's another angle to this Simbiat. I mean, when we have these conversations and you ask yourself, we are traveling out to go get strategies on how to mitigate or curb security crisis in Nigeria, when you know and I know that we have homegrown solutions to our problems. Are you going to tell me, and within Nigeria, what's happening in Borno is not what's happening in Imo State? I mean, within Nigeria now,
okay.
What's happening in Borno is not what's happening. We have peculiarities of the security challenges that we face. Even within the northeast kind of, when you say let's put a blanket to it, this is northeast kind peculiarity. Within states, we have different methods to these security challenges that we have. So my question now it's not just about Rome. I want to hear that you are importing certain innovations and technologies that would do this and do this, considering our peculiarity of security challenges. We have different security challenges. I mean, I'm always excited to see that, you know, we are out there trying to learn more and know international practice in covering security, but we also need homegrown, if you ask me, homegrown solutions to our security challenges.
Let's hope that when they come back, they will be able to provide better solutions or better strategies for us to be able to combat the security challenges we have in the country.
I just want something where our president is going out there to tell the world how best to curb security challenges. Like, listen, this is how I did it, and what's stopping us from taking the charge? I don't want us at the receiving end of what others have put, efforts that others had put in and figured it out for their country, and then we now come and say, okay, let's adopt that strategy. I don't think it's cutthroat like that with our peculiar security challenges, but that's exciting.
So
okay,
Aso is back in the news again. Aso has never even left the news, but now Aso FG talks end in stalemate as Conwa breaks rank. So I saw that Aso has gone on another strike for 2 weeks now, and that would make it the 28th strike in how many years? So my question now is that, because I saw this Conwa is like a fraction of Aso.
Of Aso, yeah.
So is it that Conwa is not, I feel like they're supposed to be united to fight for the same cause, not when one party is on strike, the other party is backing out of the strike, and we have conflict of interest.
Well, we've had this before. I remember when Ngige was Minister of Labour. I think that's when he registered Conwa. It was very funny. But we've always had this where there's parallel leadership to everything. I feel like the education sector has to be checked into once and for all. I cannot believe that I watched my elder sisters go through strike actions upon strike actions. I watched myself. I mean, I was part of the entire strike action thing because I went to a federal university, and my children will soon get into the university, and I'll be sitting down again and for the umpteenth time watch them go through strike action upon strike action. It's very unfortunate that we are still recording all of this. I'm really hoping above everything that it will not be the order of the day. We would have a seamless negotiation that would give sustainable engagement, sustainable solution to this ASU federal government challenge. And now federal government has even threatened no work, no pay. Oh, I saw that. And when I listened to the conservatives in the UK talk about no work, no pay. Doctors will not be allowed to go on strike, and of course, our very own Kemi was the one pushing it. I laughed and said, "This lady may not identify as Nigerian as much as she admits, but she's very Nigerian." But yeah, that said, I think it's a call for you know, when you're grasping on straws, you're drowning and grasping on straws, and that's how it feels like that the federal government do not know at this point what to do again, and so they feel like, you know what, let us also hit you back. And our way of hitting you back is if you go on that strike, you will not get paid. But that goes against the union laws. At no point should a worker say, "I dey vex," you know, withdraw his salary. Okay, so we have other stories here. Psychologists blame lifestyle authors for emotional instability among youth. Blame lifestyle authors for emotional instability among youth. So that story is on page 29 of the Guardian newspaper. It must be a very interesting read, because when I went through it, I was asking myself, who are we then to blame? I mean, it goes back. I'm not a psychologist. I know we had a psychologist some time ago here in the studio. It goes back to there's serious economic challenges that's making parents all work. That attention that should be for children, that should be given to children, is no longer as available.
And children now seek the attention or affection outside the home, and they are hereby exposed to different kinds of all sorts on social media.
And we cannot underestimate the need for emotional connection. You understand? You cannot estimate the need for emotional connection. And so, and how much are you asking the parents to do? They are out there, they have hustled all day, they didn't have time for the children. Of course, they've probably ensured that the children are fine. When they come back, give them a break. They really are tired as well.
But then there should be a proper work-life balance, like a structure that's, while work is important, the family is
just as important. Balance is everything. Balance is everything. And we have here, federal government revokes Maraba Kefi road contract over negligence, faulty design. Okay, I don't know much about that, but that story is on page 20 of the Guardian newspaper. Presidency Sultan, others commit to friendly girl-child policies. Presidency Sultan, others commit to friendly girl-child policies. How very interesting. Okay, because we've been here before, we've seen these headlines year in, year out. Friendly girl child policies. Nigerian girl child have peculiar issues they are facing. You see, the economic challenges we are facing is worse on the girl child, because she is the one who's expected to take care of the home, take care of your siblings. And so
even in the north, the whole girl child bride is very high in that sector. So these friendly policies for the girl child, is it going to like address this like internal issues, not the one that is on the outside that people just see and talk about? How about the ones that we do not even talk about?
Because we want to hide our heads in the sand and not say that there are child brides going on. We are not saying that children are being deprived. The girls are being deprived opportunities to go to school so that they can cater and help parents back at home. We have more number. Nigeria records over 19 million out of school children. We have 60% girls not going to school. So there are several initiatives that could be introduced, and it's not just lip service. We keep recording this year in, year out. We know what we are going to be more friendly, girl child friendly in our policies, but we need more. We need something more tangible. We need more than we need actions. But that's just me being a feminist or girl advocate. Let's move on from that story. What's next?
So we have Zenith Bank hopeful for full year performance, pays 51.3 billion naira dividends. Okay, that's at the footer. We also have here Mbas exit ends PDP stake dominant in Southeast. Mbas exit ends PDP stake
dominant in southeast. We're seeing a lot of people move back and forth from the PDP to other parts of the other political parties. Right. With that, we quickly move on to the Nigerian Tribune newspaper this morning. Federal government threatens no work, no pay as ASO declares 2-week strike. Federal government threatens no work, no pay as ASO declares 2-week strike action. I'm sure a lot of parents listening to this will just roll their eyes and say, not again. Not again.
After all the old talks, the old conversations, and then ASO still goes on strike. It still affects the calendar, the school's calendar. And we talked about it last time, and we were like, how much are we going to, like, is this how we are going to continue? Are we going to go back and forth concerning strike? Strike is like something that should have even been a thing of the past in Nigeria, but sadly,
here we
something that we.
I mean, most concerning is the fact that it doesn't seem to have an end. There's no end to what the strike action. You can't say that, oh, there is this thing that has settled this strike action, and we will not have strike again. Thank goodness for this aspect that has been, settled. But that's very concerning. Okay, we have another story. Presidency confirms Edun's ill health. CBN governor leads Nigeria's delegation to World Bank IMF meeting. CBN governor leads Nigeria's delegation to World Bank IMF meeting. Again, we are jetting out to World Bank IMF meeting. Okay, we have the Zenith Bank rewards shareholders. Polaris Bank dominates BAFI Award. Our banks are doing a lot there. But we have here Nigerians set for alternatives over scarcity of gas. Unfortunate that in spite of the enormous gas reserves that we have in the country,
we have to suffer, let me use the word, for cooking gas. So now that we are now looking for alternatives, are we going back in the past?
Yes,
people now start looking for charcoal, using firewoods, and going back to kerosene, which is something that we should have moved to. Other people are even using, other countries, they started even using solar or something to cook, but now we see how Nigeria has to go back.
Is it too much? I mean, when you travel, when you leave this country, and you see how pipes have been laid, you just switch on your gas from the comfort of your room, and gas. Is it too much to ask? Is it too much for Nigeria for us to achieve that, especially for a country that has so much to give? We have so much natural resources. Country, instead of flaring this gas, for crying out loud, why can't we trap it? Nigeria has no business recording high prices of petroleum products, if you ask me. Naturally, we do not have business doing that.
And then now going back to charcoal and firewood, now would even have its implications on public health and even the environment.
Absolutely.
So we have to, after dealing with this issue, we now have to start dealing with environmental issues and our health issues.
Okay, so above the masthead of the Nigerian Tribune newspaper, there is, I think this is an editorial. It says, INEC chairman, 12 hurdles Amopiton may face. 12 hurdles Amopiton may face. You could pick that story. It's on page 22 of the Nigerian Tribune newspaper, talking about the new INEC chairman. I mean, it's exciting that we didn't have anyone acting for too long, because one thing I know is often when you have someone acting for too long, you're unsure. It doesn't give structure to it. I know you're just expecting another person to come take over. Does whoever is acting, does he have the opportunity to enact policies and all that? But I'm happy that the president didn't wait. Someone was immediately announced.
Now the person, one of the challenges that the person will face will probably be electoral credibility, logistics, and then instilling public confidence, because a whole lot of Nigerians have lost trust in the whole process. So it is now on the person's
without this INEC, without this editorial, if you ask any Nigerian, there is a clearing up of the voter registrar data. They have a lot of ghost names in there, as some reports have shown. They have underage. Remember before, before minors, even though the past administration
PVCs to vote.
Yeah, the past administration had said they had filtered it off and cleared all of that up, but that register has to be checked again. The credibility of IREF, all the hurdles and flaws that we faced,
and the risk of political interference.
Oh my goodness, is it political interference or INEC tells you, and it's true, they do not have constitutional right to make punitive measures on anyone. So if they find you doing something wrong or flouting the Electoral Act, all they can do is call the police. And now, do we have law enforcement that is credible enough to ensure that these individuals are prosecuted? That would further deter others. So the questions are plenty, but we're running out of time, so quickly now we'll go to the Punch newspaper.
We have ASU rejects FG's proposal, begins 2-week strike today. The union snubs government peace talks over unpaid areas. Others insist on industrial action. Then FG says no work, no pay. NAS comments move to resolve lingering crisis. So we've talked about it, and we just hope that by the next time, ASU and FG are coming back together.
It's cute. It's cute.
Let's have something solid and something tangible. And we don't have to go. We don't have this at the top of our
but one thing you would give this particular administration is that, in spite of everything, they've not recorded as many strike actions as the past administration. During the Buhari administration, it was almost every week that ASU was going on strike. It seemed like the government did not know how to manage it well, and it's exciting to know that we are doing a better work. I just hope that the federal government will have that conversation. Edun recovering, no plans for replacement, says the presidency. Edun recovering, no plans for replacements. Talking about the Minister of Economy right there. Naira hit 10-month high on strong FX inflows. Naira hit 10-month high on strong FX inflow. That story is on page 33. Our Naira seem to be gaining, but Nigerians will ask, when you talk to an economist and you say, what's making Naira gain at the moment? What are the indices that we can fall on to increase? They tell you that Nigeria's economy is very peculiar, is very dynamic in such a way that you will be surprised the shocks. It's not by the books. Nigeria's gain or loss is never by the books, But
it's something that happens spontaneously, or just
we don't know. Nobody knows, because even when some indices will point you to a loss, Nigeria will be gaining. But I want us to be intentional about productivity. What do we need to do? Increasing this strength increasing the strength on our Naira. Experts will often tell you that you need to produce, you need to export, you need to attract businesses, investment, goods and services,
and reduce import as much as possible.
What are we doing right? What are the indices? I think I will get an economist to come explain it once more. Why are we gaining, and how can we continue in this momentum and gain even further? What's happening in our oil and gas sector? Because that's what hits our Naira even more. We have a lot of players depend so much on the dollar to transact. We are not transacting in Naira, so we need to have that conversation. Absolutely.
With an analyst, yes. On page 18, we have Tinubu under fire over presidential pardon for drug offenders.
You see how I say it's mischievous when you pick out drug offenders. There was a bouquet of individuals.
There was even posthumous pardon.
There were those who had passed on. Yeah.
So it's not only drug, but people, but I think,
again, it's very mischievous,
like
and that's being highlighted. More Kwara abductees rescued as military sustains pressure on bandits. That's a beautiful thing to read. I feel a bit bad sometimes when, you know, we record this, and
but you agree that the Nigerian military is actually doing a great job, at least from what you are saying. Even though they could have actually stopped these abductions and kidnappings all around, but they are making efforts in rescuing as much as they can.
Absolutely. 2027, no pact to Jonathan, says Obi. For some reason, we've been seeing a renewed conversation around Goodluck Jonathan running for 2027. I remember at an event recently, the wife of the former president, Goodluck Jonathan, Mama Peace, came out to say, I do not miss Aso Rock at all. We have no plans of returning. Tinubu and Tinubu's wife are like family to us.
Yes, they are even in support.
They are even in support of this administration.
Yes,
so I don't know. Well, unfortunately, we've been seeing this conversation go live. We've seen people who say, oh yes, he's interested. If you ask me personally, I would say we don't need a Jonathan. We don't need a Goodluck Jonathan to continue, but that's my personal. We need
a better Nigeria.
We need a better somebody like I'm not saying he doesn't. We just don't need a Jonathan. If you ask me personally,
okay, that's personal.
But imagine a Jonathan Obi alliance. That would be very beautiful to see. A Jonathan Obi alliance, beautiful in the sense that these are individuals who have some level of integrity amongst the people, among certain individuals as well. So yeah, it would be good to see that alliance and see how it works. But these are two Southerners. How would it work? It's completely cutting off. It's completely cutting off the North. Usually the ticket reflects both sides, so it will be tough to see two Southerners come together like that. But it will be a very ambitious what's it called now? Ambitious ticket, if you know what I mean. But then again, this administration went with a Muslim ambitious ticket, and today nobody is remembering that they are both Muslims, as it should be. Tinubu on the you've taken that. Killings. Adeleke denies hiding Amotekun commander blasts APC. Adeleke denies hiding Amotekun commander blasts APC. Adeleke seems to be one of the PDP governors that's standing strong, even with all the speculations that he's going to move to APC. He's been standing strong. He's holding on and saying no, we are not moving. And then now he's blasting the APC as he's been accused of what's his name? Amotekun Sunday Igbohu. Right, Sunday Igbohu. Yeah. Two arrested over mourner's death at Osun funeral party. What? Two arrested over mourner's death at Osun funeral party. Mourner's death. Okay, so let me get something. Somebody passed on. Some mourners were killed. Some mourners were there to mourn the passing of the person, and then some mourners were killed. And then two and the two more were arrested over the killers of the So that's on page 5. Absolutely. Definitely read, because it sounds like an interesting something that it sounds very interesting. So Polaris Bank shines at 2025 PAFI Awards. Shout out to our banks in Nigeria for setting the pace, and we hope to see more and more awards in the coming years. Yeah, so quickly we move on to the Vanguard newspaper. This morning, the Vanguard newspaper says non-oil export, local investors lose out of 4.8 trillion boom. Non-oil exports, local investors lose out of 4.8 trillion naira boom. And the rider here says foreign rivals wielding cheap capital, sidestepping export rules outmuscle local operators. Stakeholders decry funding crisis, spot bottlenecks, analysts demand shift to value addition. NEPC react. Okay? Quickly, because we really have run out of time. You can't fight drugs by freeing traffickers. ADC slams Tinubu. Renowned activist Abiodun Aremu killed by hit-and-run driver. Oh, that's unfortunate. State regulators asked NAS to halt central gaming bill. U.S. genocide debate sparked by federal government failures. That's coming from Hashim. Lagos hospital performs first Eurolift surgery in Nigeria. I guess that's something to celebrate. And finally, 100 billion naira loan sparked war of words between Alea Autumn in Benue State. But that's it for the newspaper review segment this morning. We shall be moving on to go join Air by Day with sustainability polls. We'll be back after that. Stay with us. This is still Aso Morning.
Our first efforts at democracy and self-government were abruptly arrested in the mid-60s, largely as a result of the incongenial atmosphere engendered by the uncompromising stance adopted by the political parties of the First Republic. Thus, opportunities were lost for our people to interact and learn to accommodate different points of view for the betterment of the country. We must not allow that episode to repeat itself. The new system that we'll have adopted presents us with yet another opportunity to achieve national integration, which is a prerequisite for the building of a strong and virile nation.
Hello and welcome to Sustainability Pulse with A by Day, your go-to platform for facts, content and conversations on climate action, policy and the path to a sustainable future. Ladies and gentlemen, we're watching today. I'm kicking off with a powerful new series. I'm sure we all enjoyed the series on beat plastic pollution. For this series, we'll be talking about climate equity and accountability. And we're starting with the question at the center of it all. Who is paying for Africa's green transition? Is it the world's richest countries who have caused this crisis? Is it African governments trying to keep up? Or is it the African people, again, carrying the burden? Let's unpack it all and understand where we are. Now, at the recent World Bank IMF spring meetings, African leaders renewed their call for climate finance that is predictable, accessible, and fair. With COP30 happening in November this year, which is just around the corner in Brazil, Africa's negotiators are uniting around this demand. Ali Mohammed, Kenya's advisor and Africa's lead climate negotiator, made it clear that there is no reverse gear on climate ambition. Africa is not backing down. Meanwhile, the World Bank president, Ajay Banga, said the institution mobilized for the $3 billion in climate financing this past fiscal year. But here's the challenge. Most of that is flowing to middle-income countries, not Africa's most vulnerable regions. And this is the fact on ground. Globally, a wave of interest is rising around debt for climate swaps. Yes. Where countries receive debt relief in exchange for investing in nature-based solution or clean energy. It's a bold idea, but is it working for Africa? Would it work for Africa? Let's see how that is. But seriously, the truth is, if we can swap our debts, for, climate action, I mean, it's not a bad idea. It's something we can look into as a continent, as a country. We can look into that. Different countries within Africa can look into that and see the possibility of having some debt relief as a result of taking action to curb climate crisis. We'll go on a short break, and once we are back, we'll look at the reality we find ourselves and how Africa needs to meet up with the climate targets. Just stay with us. We're going to a short break, and once we are back, we would continue.
Africa stands at the front lines of the climate crisis. Over 600 million Africans still lack access to electricity. 1 in 3 face food insecurity due to climate-induced droughts and floods. By 2050, over 100 million people on the continent could be pushed into extreme poverty because of climate change. Plastic waste is piling, forests are vanishing, coastal cities are sinking. Yet, we are not powerless. Africa is also the youngest continent with 60% of its population under 25. We hold the energy, innovation, and drive to reshape the future. From solar-powered villages to bold climate tech, from green entrepreneurs to eco-warriors in slums and cities, the pulse of sustainability is rising. This is Sustainability Pulse with Ebaide, the show where truth meets urgency and action meets hope. Together, we decode the data, amplify the change makers, and reclaim Africa's future, one story at a time. This is not just a show, it is a movement. Welcome to The Pulse.
Yes, welcome back from that short break. And just before we went on the break, we're talking about, Africa's need to step up in terms of climate finance. We looked at how the World Bank IMF spring meetings and Africa leaders renewing their call for climate finance, that is actually predictable, accessible, and fair. We also looked at how the World Bank, is trying to actually improve the climate financing we find ourselves. Now, the reality check, Africa needs 277 billion US dollars annually to meet its climate targets. But in 2021 to 2022, all climate finance flowing into Africa totaled just 43.6 billion US dollars, less than 16% of what is actually required. Even more concerning, 70% of this financing is debt, not grants. Not grants, debts. So it means that we still have to pay back. This means that African nations are being asked to borrow their way out of a crisis they did not cause. They didn't cause it. And the cost of borrowing is much higher than in developed countries. Africa's spotlights, Nigeria's latest sovereign green bond, came with an interest rate of 19%. For context, countries with France or Germany borrow at 2 to 3%. This bond will support projects like solar energy, green buildings, and forest protection, but at a high cost to the treasury. Kenya is preparing its first sovereign green bond under ICMA. And the whole idea is for it to be compliant, with ICMA's, framework. It needs 62 billion US dollars to meet its climate goals by 2030. Over 87% of that is expected from external partners. Now, let's look at Senegal. Senegal signed a 2.8 billion US dollars just energy transition partnership with European and Canadian government to boost renewables to 40% of electricity by 2030. But critics worry. Who monitors implementation? How transparent is the process? Let's take a break now. But no, not a break now. Let's look at the breakdown, the breakdown of how things are working. Whilst the African governments are trying, to get their hands on, monies to actually help sustain the climate financing project, they're also drowning in debts. Just look at that breakdown and imagine, while trying to solve a problem, we're incurring more debt as a continent. That in itself is not fair. Now let's look at what is working. Green bonds are increasing visibility into how money is spent. Yes. Now, new climate resilient clauses in debt contracts allow repayment suspension during disasters. The African Development Bank now has a strong sustainable bond framework to support African states. But that can work. Let's look at what's not working. Debt for climate swaps are too small. Barbados, for example, saved 50 million US dollars, which is just a drop in the ocean. A drop in the ocean, $50 million as to almost 300 billion US dollars that we need. That's just a drop in the ocean. And private sector funding still avoids Africa due to perceived risk. Yes. You will not blame them. Conditionality traps force, African governments to cut social spending while taking on climate loans. Yes, how do we do that? Cut down social spending. Let's face the real issue with at hand. Your voice matters. Now, as citizens, as advocates, as young people, how can you engage? How do we track these people? How do we track this spending? How do we track this finance? How do you join the conversation? Track your country's climate bond and budget and bond. Ask your local government, for example. Your local government, of course, in the chain of command from your state government, your local government. Ask them, what's going on within that state? The green bond budget. Do they even have a green budget fund going on in that state? And if they do, where does it go to? Join civic tech groups. There's budgets, for example. And these are ways to actually hold the leaders accountable. So even at the local government level, you can actually hold them accountable. At the state government level, you can hold them accountable. If the federal government is going to release a bond, a budget, a green budget, for example, we need to see how we can hold these leaders accountable. Now, we can also use the tools like Open Climate. There's actually a tool called Open Climate or CPI Tracker to follow international finance flows, yes. And when we follow this money, we can change the narrative. And the truth is, Africa has a lot to do when it comes to climate financing. Beyond even seeking for these debts or for these monies, there's actually a lot we can do within our continent, within our countries, to ensure that the climate finance gaps are closed. There's a lot we can do as a country, as a continent. Now, we'll go on a short break, and when we are back, we'll look at, how Africa prepares for COP30 in Brazil. It's coming. 30 years, the Conference of Parties, year in, year out, we gather in some country and discuss a lot of things. But where do we go from there? And how is Africa preparing for COP30 in Brazil? And we need to be clear on this thing, for example. We're going to COP30 as a continent or as a country in the continent. What are the conversations? What do you bring to the table? What do you drive during the whole conversations? How do you negotiate? Yeah, we actually have a chief negotiator from Kenya. But those negotiations, to what end? And more than ever, we need implementation, driving action towards implementation. That is not far-fetched. But as a continent, we need to be prepared for COP30. So we're going on a quick break, and when we are back, we'll look at how we're preparing for COP30 as a continent, and of course what the numbers are and what we should be demanding as a continent. See you shortly, and when we are back, we'll look at this and what we should do as a continent going forward.
Africa stands at the front lines of the climate crisis. Over 600 million Africans still lack access to electricity. 1 in 3 face food insecurity due to climate-induced droughts and floods. By 2050, over 100 million people on the continent could be pushed into extreme poverty because of climate change. Plastic waste is piling, forests are vanishing, coastal cities are sinking. Yet, we are not powerless. Africa is also the youngest continent with 60% of its population under 25. We hold the energy, innovation, and drive to reshape the future. From solar-powered villages to bold climate tech, from green entrepreneurs to eco-warriors in slums and cities, the pulse of sustainability is rising. This is Sustainability Pulse with Ebaide, the show where truth meets urgency and action meets hope. Together, we decode the data, amplify the change makers, and reclaim Africa's future, one story at a time. This is not just a show, it is a movement. Welcome to the Pulse.
Yes. Now, here is a call to action. As Africa prepares for COP30, let's be clear. Africa should approach negotiations as a united, assertive bloc, demanding justice, equity, and accountability across all pillars of the Paris Agreement. The continent contributes least to the global emissions, yet bears the brunt of climate impact. This must be front and center. We keep saying it. Africa actually is the greatest sufferers, but we're the least emitters of this hazard. So what do we demand as we approach COP30 in Brazil? What do we demand? What do we ask for? How do we put our boots to the ground? Now, climate finance justice demand full delivery of the $100 billion per year promised by developed countries, not loans, but grants and concessional finance. We must drive that these monies must be grants and not loans. We can't try to solve a problem and at the same time incurring debts. Now, we have to push for a new finance goal post-2025 that reflects real needs, actual needs. Africa alone may need 2.8 trillion by 2030 for its NDCs. Yes. Our nationally determined contributions. We need finance. We need new goals on how to achieve our NDCs by 2030. And those demands have to be met. They have to be met. Climate finance access reform. We have to simplify and fast-track access to GCF and other funds, especially for frontline states. Now, for loss and damage, we have to see how we can actually operationalize the loss and damage fund with clear, non-bureaucratic pathways for African countries to access funding. The truth is, let's demand more grants, not loans. We need, and we can't keep, keeping silent or keeping our voices low as a result of trying to play small. As a continent, we demand. We shouldn't just ask for. Because at the end of the day, we are the ones suffering the most. So let's demand for more grants, not loans, more transparency, not bureaucracy. And most importantly, more inclusion of young people, women, and grassroots groups in climate finance decisions. We shouldn't just listen to them. We should amplify. And for this episode, we shouldn't just listen to this episode. We need to amplify this episode, share this episode, tag your leaders, speak up. We deserve better financing as a country, as a continent, and a livable future for all. And as usual, we won't have these conversations here today, without driving our sustainability tips for the week as usual. We will not wrap up without engaging you all and charging you all to be sustainable leaders, even in your homes. In your homes, your churches, you have to we have to learn how to step up and see, best ways, to actually join the fight. You don't have to have so much money, no. And these are the myths we have to change. You have to rethink your spending. Finance your own climate action. This might sound big, but you can start small. Choose eco-conscious banks or fintechs that don't invest in fossil fuels. Yes. Look out for them. Imagine all of us watching this today and we tell ourselves, you know what? For every bank, if any bank actually finances or invests in fossil fuels, we will boycott that bank. Imagine all of us taking a stand. We have to learn how to also support local green businesses, from farmers market to solar startups. Reduce your personal debt and redirect savings towards energy sufficient appliances. Reusable items or even community cleanups can be done. Where your money goes, your value grows. And also remember that climate finance is not just global, it's personal. Every naira, every dollar, every CD you spend can either build resilience or deepen vulnerability. Let your lifestyle be your statement. And like I keep saying on this show all the time, that this is not just a show. This is not just a regular program where we all come together and we just tune in, listen, and I talk about climate change and sustainability and it goes away. No. We all have to hold ourselves accountable. We have to hold ourselves accountable and ensure that we do what is right. And how do we do what is right? By being conscious of our living. By being conscious of living sustainably, of adding our own quota, contributing our own quota to sustainable living. And how you live sustainably will definitely determine how long you will live. I keep telling people that you don't have to have so much money. As simple, and I keep saying it, as simple as having a reusable water bottle, As simple as that can make all the difference. As simple as using a tote bag instead of plastic bags can make all the difference. As simple as rejecting single-use plastic can make all the difference. It starts with all of us. It starts with me, it starts with you, it starts with your friends, it starts with your pastor, your imam, your father, your mother, your relatives. It starts with all of us. And until we begin to wake up to these things, we cannot achieve any progress. And so, and as I said, you know, the climate finance it's buzzing. We need to keep doing our bits. Of course, the government on at its end would have to see how they can drive climate finance from its end. But you, as an individual in your home, look at what we can do, you know, by yourself and for yourself to live sustainably. And I do hope that we're not just thinking in our minds that this is a conversation for the rich. I keep saying it, we need to bust this myth. No. This is actually a conversation for all of us, and we have to keep at it. Let your lifestyle be your statement. Let your lifestyle be sustainable so you live longer and healthier and better. I hope we have gotten major insights on today's episode. This will be it for today's episode, and do not forget that we're here Mondays and Wednesdays to drive conversations around sustainability and climate change. The series on climate finance will not stop. It has started today, and for a few more episodes we'll talk about climate finance and see how we can move forward as a continent. What are the things we should look out for from, you know, as a continent in the conversations that we'll find ourselves, I mean, in November, gathered on, you know, in a place called Brazil in November, talking about climate finance and climate justice. How do we move from there? What are the conversations we should have? How should Africa actually stand its feet to the ground? How should Africa ensure and insist, you know, on grants and not loans? How do we ensure, you know, that we build resilience and actually, you know, and ensure that we, you know, we move from here? You know, all of these things have to come into proper perspectives. Our government will have to step up. Our leaders in Africa will have to step up. This is a time not for us to be lax or to be relaxed in any way. We have to demand for more grants. We more than ever, we want justice for Africa when it comes to climate change. And so we must be resilient, and we must uphold what we truly believe in. Like I keep saying, we're the lowest emitters. We're the lowest emitters, and everyone has to come on board. Both young people, women, old people, grassroots groups, leaders at the, you know, at the local government level, traditional rulers, everybody has to be on board on this. I hope that we are taking something very valuable today. And while we're thinking your life on how you can drive sustainability within your own sphere, look out for your neighbor as well. Talk about it. Share these conversations you have heard today. Share the post on your Facebook, your Instagram, your Twitter. Talk about it as much as possible. Let's hold our governments accountable. Let's hold our leaders accountable. Let's ensure that we are all on the same page. And like I keep saying, and let's not forget, while we drive climate conversations, climate finance at the international level, you know, at the regional level, at the continental level, right here, even in your homes, you can also be accountable and, of course, live sustainable. Until next time, keep staying informed, keep staying engaged, always tune in and ensure that you join the conversation. And above all, stay sustainable, live sustainable, breathe sustainable, and, you know, just be an all-round person who is geared towards living a sustainable life. Until next time, we would be stopping here on Wednesday. Tune in, same time, 9 a.m. Tune in and let's, of course, get into the conversations and see how we can encourage ourselves to stay sustainable. Until next time, this is Ebaide, your host of the Sustainability Pulse with Ebaide. We're here to give you the pulse, the reality check, to urge you, and of course, to ensure that no one is left behind in this conversation. Until next time, do have an excellent and great week ahead. And don't forget, do not forget, this is a movement, it's not just a show. We're all in this together. Live sustainably. And until next time, see you on Wednesday morning by 9 a.m.
Welcome back from that Ebaide. Thank you so much for once again giving us those very important tips around climate change, environmental adaptability, how you too can contribute to ensuring our Earth is safe. So we are moving on now. Cynthia, what do we have?
It's the International Day for Disaster and Risk Reduction today, a moment where the world pauses to reflect on how to prepare, respond, and rebuild in the face of calamity, from earthquakes to droughts to flood and all other disasters that test the resilience of nations. Now let's look at how disasters are played out globally and within Nigeria. In March, a 7.7 magnitude earthquake in central Myanmar claimed around 4,500 lives and cost billions of dollars in damage. In Asia, several monsoon floods earlier this year left hundreds dead and flooded the entire communities. In the US, we've had cases of wildfires in 2025 become the costliest on record. In Nigeria has encountered several forms of disaster, amongst ranging from flooding to soil degradation, coastal erosion, oil spillage, insect infestation, and which all boils down to climate change. The most prominent has been flooding. You'd agree with me. There's hardly no states in Nigeria that has not experienced one severe flooding or the other. In 2025, we had the Mokwa flood in Niger State, which displaced about 1,000 and destroyed over 4,000 homes. And claimed more than 500 lives. In 2024, we had the Borno State dam failure floods that submerged the whole communities.
Absolutely.
Also, between April and September 2025, flooding events across multiple states has claimed life, displaced hundreds of thousands, and damaged crops and infrastructure. Today, being the International Day for Disaster and Risk Reduction, we want to ask the question: do we build only after destruction or before? Because we see that when this happens, Nigerians will start pushing them in IDP camps. What do we do? What efforts have been put in place
to mitigate floods or these disasters in the very first place?
And then do we invest in resilience, or we must have to spend on relief?
The question is, if you ask me now, who I will ask? You know, we have a vibrant meteorological agency that constantly gives you these projections and tell you, listen, these are areas that are going to be susceptible and volatile to flood or some sort of disasters, especially natural. I know that you in your report you seem to be more about natural disasters. But when we get this warning, I remember I keep hammering it, especially on the show. We wake up in the morning, especially at the beginning of the year, we have these projections from our meteorological agencies. I should expect government and governors across board.
We even have the National Emergency Management
No, I don't want to talk about the National
Management
Agency because I fault their response. Like the Borno dam collapse that happened. I was appalled. I was completely shaken as to what the National Emergency Agency in Nigeria considers relief. Symbiotes, they were throwing bread on water for human beings. Even rice, their primary response is to give them rice. Like, is that a point of we need solutions? I will never forget that vision. I could not believe it. I looked at it and said, this cannot be 21st century Nigeria. They were throwing bread. People were scampering. That was our kind of relief. We were not talking about, I read, you also, I'm sure everyone who's listening to me right now reads and watches instances where a human being in America, for instance, I'm not saying we have to be there, but it's not rocket science. A human being in America will decide to go and hike. He gets up there, can no longer come down or up. They bring helicopters and charge him. They bring helicopters because every life matters. But in our own case, people are dying. People, buildings are submerged. People are trapped in buildings. And we come with a boat with such arrogance. I don't want to pull those videos out because it's disturbing. I'm telling you, you're throwing bread like you're throwing it to animals. I know dogs that will not even go for their dogs that are trained better if you throw food at them, they will eat it. They will scramble for it. But that's what emergency relief has become in our country. I don't want to go to the emergency response. My question is, when the Nigerian Meteorological Agency brings these projections, what do we do about it? What's the efforts that are being put to mitigate? What's the awareness level? Because that's another problem. You know, where a community is told that, listen, there's going to be landslide, or there's going to be this or that, and the community is like, we've been here for several years, something must kill a man, we die. You know, there's
this Lekki flood that happens every year, and it gets worse every year, because I feel like if they've had this experience last year, they should be better prepared for this year. But then when you look at it, it just even gets worse than the previous year. And I wonder why we keep adding such when we have an agency that is supposed to manage like emergency management in Nigeria.
Yeah, mitigate. Well, let's position against to not just responsive. Oh, okay, it has happened, let us respond to it. What are we doing so that it doesn't happen in the first place? And that is why I always urge everybody to watch Ebide's show. Ebide is constantly reminding us of the impact of environmental ignorance. It's huge if you put it in the course of things. I also listened to the President of the United States talk about climate change and how it is he calls it the biggest scam of all time. The biggest scam of all time. Yeah, the biggest scam of all time.
But do you think it really is?
You just mentioned a lot of disasters across the world, and in rapid succession. You tell me, do you think it is? Do you think it is? Nigerians, Africans are recording more and more of such disasters. Drought in one end, flooding in the other. So you tell me, do you think it is?
To some extent, I think it is.
Oh, I would like
because we even have other disasters that are not climate change inclined.
Like what disasters?
Like fire outbreak.
That's climate change. It means there is some sort of drought that has made it so dry that you're susceptible to fire. But go ahead.
Fire in the sense that, like, maybe electrical faults that could have been managed, and then because maybe some negligence.
Okay.
And then
now discussing wildfires.
Okay.
Because when you say
like
fires,
outbreak in buildings,
wildfires is the number one consequence of climate change. It means there is drought. It would not be wildfires if it was green and blossoming. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
So yes. So when we now talk about home fires, industrial fires, right? Those ones are maybe electrical,
oil spillage, or
no. Let's talk oil spillage. It's still some sort of ripple effect of climate change, in the sense that this one is now man-made, where when we cause
the Nigerians are not even, is it that we are not aware enough, or we just like to take risks? You see, some people, they would want to go and tamper with this pipelines just to be able to poverty.
And there are two sides to it. I mean, it comes from poverty from one end, where you see that people just want to be able to feed. They can no longer farm because of the environmental degradation that has happened as a consequence of oil spilling. Right, they can no longer farm, they can no longer fish, because the has affected aquatic life, so they can no longer do that. So what do they tend to do? The only thing that they can do, wake up and see to just survive, is a pipe that's running through them, and you know that pipe has oil in it. So how can I make money out of it? So that's a different angle entirely, where people just need to feed, and these host communities is captured in the PIA. Let's have a host communities tended for, because they have the first consequence of oil spillage and the attendant effect of oil exploration. You know, we've had this conversation over and over again. But when I talk climate change, I'm talking about, for instance, we have refineries that are flaring into the air. It would affect the ozone layer, and it would affect our the climate, whether you want to admit it or not. So we have very serious issues, and you see, what I've heard you say is exactly what I hear some House of Representatives, our legislators, our senators. I've had conversations with some of them who say, excuse me, we are at the receiving end of the global, or rather the West, the global North's activities in terms of industrialization, not planting trees and all that. And it's true, but that's not to say we cannot have shocks. We cannot have smart environmental plans and strategies that mitigate climate change.
But what I've noticed in Nigeria is that we only have it good on paper. We don't have actual implementation, because there is this Akwa Ibom's emergency framework, like emergency response framework. It just happens it looks good on paper, and then but when it comes to implementation, I think that's where we are lagging behind. So who do you hold responsible for all of these happenings? Do you hold the Director General of NEMA? Do we hold?
No, I mean, when you say who do we hold responsible, in what aspect? Are you talking about in climate consequences and disasters?
No, I think in response, in terms of response.
Because when it comes to, we are all culpable.
Okay.
You know, some of us who are driving and we throw polythene or nylon, as we call it, nylon very carelessly, it goes into our what's it called now?
Our drainage system
and clog the drainage system. You know, there are several activities you and I, like my father always say, if everyone cleans the front of their homes, the whole country will be clean. If you sweep and know how to throw away especially nylon, if you know the dangers that plastic does to the environment, you won't even drink water. Exactly, you won't even drink water. Not just to their
we need orientation and reorientation, awareness. We need to unlearn and also need to relearn.
Conversation. I saw someone who's doing something about it. He has machines. If you just mention it, and in fact that's some of the people we will bring on our platform soon. He has machines where bring your plastic and get a coupon for something. You know, you could make some money bringing plastic. It will cut off that Babambula issue where people are distrustful. Oh, we're afraid.
So it's a two-way thing. People make money while also clean the environment.
It's more than two-way. It has several benefits to it. In some countries, as you are passing, you know the green. There are several kinds of waste bins. The green is for organic product. The brown is for industrial product. The this is for. You already know that if I have what kind of waste do I have? And then when you look at the waste disposing strategies of people who are conscious about the environment, you see that some goes into recycling, some goes into fertilizers, the organic ones. They are very intentional about it, you know. And again, it's not rocket science. It's not something we cannot achieve here in the country. But Cynthia, we really have run out of time. Thank you for giving us that report on the environment. It's something I am very passionate about. So there's no way you will bring climate change issues that I would not come alive. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching today's edition of Aso Morning. I've had a wonderful time. I hope you have too. My name is Dr. Joy Asonye.
I am Cynthia Samzat, and we'll see you tomorrow.